Good day everyone, welcome to today's video. Today it's the review on the P40 Medium tank. Now, this tank when I first got it, I've heard good things and bad things about this tank, and I thought it's going to be just a Joe average medium tank. But actually I was pretty wrong. This thing's actually really good in the right hands. So the P40 Medium tank in real life, from what I've been able to find, was actually classed as a heavy tank by the Italians. Now, obviously, it's actually a medium tank in what would be considered to be American or British service, as well as Russian service. But this vehicle is actually pretty good, and the driver's port is incredibly trollish. People shoot a driver's port thinking it's going to be an easy kill. It isn't. The driver's port has an additional 24mm of armor over the regular tank. And let me tell you the truth, that extra 24mm of armor makes a big difference, which you will see later in the video when we encounter a M22 Locust. So, at the start of the video, we actually take out the R3T20 FAHS. Don't worry, the review for this little thing's coming soon. I promise you that. Obviously, the next tank after that will be the Semivente, which I am not enjoying this thing. I GE'd my way to get the heat. That's how bad I've been having in this tank. I got parts, then FP'd, then GE'd heat, and I'm just going to do the rest over time. But what's the P40 like to drive? Well, it's got good mobility when spaded. It's alright when it's stock, but it could be better. The armor's pretty strong in most situations, but there is a bit of a strange wrongness, shall we say, with its transmission. The transmission doesn't actually connect to the tank's drive wheels. This means that there is an actual open weak spot for the vehicle, and normally, unlike a Panzer IV, you'd have the transmission take shots and things like that. In a P40, this is not the case, which is a bit annoying, but still. Armor itself over the tank is pretty reasonable, 45mm thick over the front, or over the side, sorry. Lower side portion is 40mm, rear portion is 40mm, rear of the turret in places is 45, but it can also overlap around about here to about 90 to 100mm. The gun mounter features two parts. You've got a single 48mm shield there, and another 48 behind that. Do take into account cast homogeneous is a 0.95 modifier. The easiest part to penetrate on a P40 is actually right here, but I still get the occasional bounce on here anyway. That's because I like to angle my tank. Angling your tank is very effective, and it will help. Obviously this part here is 100mm, but it's actually pretty strong there. I've had people bounce off here with M10s and things like that. But anyway, other than that, you've got the same gun as this Semivente. This machine gun shoots up an aircraft, but not very high. And overall, it is not a bad tank. Obviously, the Panzer IV F2 has the better gun, slightly better mobility, better reverse speed, but this thing's got the armor, and it's got a much more devastating gun when it penetrates. But anyway, less of that, and let's get into the replay. Obviously, I will feature the replay parts where the R3T20 is, so then you can get an idea of how the match develops. There are parts I'm going to have to skip because this replay is 24 minutes long. I don't really want you guys sitting through the full 28-minute or 24-minute battle. This battle also took place before I had to leave for college, and I'm glad it ended when it did because I was almost late to college this day, when I played the battle. But we start out in the R3T20 meme car, which I have spaded, and it is absolute joy to drive. I always start out in the meme car and then I rush points. I don't advise you doing this, people, but still. I hit the brakes do lock on this thing, just to point out. I'll go into more detail about this vehicle in the review. Don't make it to the cap. I was considering parking there, but even so. Now the T-50 is one of the few medium tanks, or light tanks, sorry, that you cannot penetrate in this thing. Obviously I'll go into more detail on what vehicles to engage and what not to engage when I actually do a review on this vehicle. Anyway, I'm going to skip ahead. T-50 has been taken out by a Semavente. And this is one of my favourite positions I like to take up. And this will set the main point for future development in the battle, which you will see later, obviously, when we bring out the P40, which is what this review is all about. And there we go, first kill in the meme car. This is a good little spot to use in most tanks because you can drive out, shoot the enemy as they're coming through the bridge area, and most importantly, you can watch this road, which some people do use. Now, Tezanet does come back later for a attempted revenge kill, but don't worry, people, he massively fails. Second kill on that Crusader. You'll be seeing Killer Embry later. And that's my second cap for the game. And don't worry, the P40s are going to be coming soon. I do get taken out in my R3 T20. I like to call it the meme car, personally. And there you just saw there, Tezanet. And there he goes, he's just driven off onto a rock and pretty much straight into the water. He cannot get out of there. There's Killer Emery. I fire a couple of shots, I take out his commander. And for some strange reason, this guy here does not notice me. And he pays the price. Oh, and don't worry, people, he is the crony of Killer Emery. If you don't know what crony means, essentially it means friend. It's just a bit of... it's a different term I like to use. Obviously Tezanet is down there, he's completely stuck, he's going to J out his vehicle just then. And at this point I pull out for a shot. I damage Killer Emery's tank again. Pull out for another shot, I get overconfident, but I take him out. I do lose the meme car sadly, but 4 kills, 2 caps, I will take that. And now for the star of the review. The P40. So I'm just going to skip ahead till we get to the P40. And here she is. So at this point in the battle, this tank is actually 3/4 spaded. The only upgrade I was missing was the transmission, the tracks, the brakes, and the suspension. Everything else was done. As well as the crew replenishment. I forgot to mention that one. Or as the digital time travel would call it, the spare retard, which, I mean, it makes sense. Now here's where it gets interesting. That is a Churchill Mark 1, people. A very tough tank. The 2 powder can potentially deal with your tank, but not when you pump a heat round straight down the barrel, pretty much. Tries to fire the 76mm howitzer. That won't do anything even if it hits. And for some reason, the Krolls, who killed me earlier, decides for whatever reason to drive straight in just to try and engage the stir. I teach him a lesson. 5th kill. Obviously technically not an ace, but there's more to come. Now Dark Angel has seen a preview of this replay, shall we say. But the only reason why I did that is because he sent me a pretty interesting replay the other day, which I'm not going to use, just to point out. But it was in the Key 27 Utsu, and you will see it on the Digital Time Travelers channel. And there's Killer Emery from earlier. Don't one-shot it because obviously it was a heat round and it bounced off the barrel. Gets strafed by an F2A who doesn't know how to pull up in typical American fashion, and he crashes into a house. So I guess you could class that as a maneuver kill. Now the P40 does struggle when its engine is at low RPM. Take this into consideration. There's my first assist of the game on that Churchill. The Stur dealt with him. It helped that I crippled the Churchill's 2-pounder. Now obviously we start moving into the cap point. The P40 does get what I like to call R smoke, and well, you get 5 smoke grenades. They're very handy to use, and they can conceal your tank reasonably well. Obviously take into account that your tank doesn't have infinite smoke grenades like an American tank or a British tank. You've only got 5, so use them wisely. We did take some very minor engine damage from the Buffalo, but don't worry about that. The engine horsepower was sufficient anyway. Now I start trying to drive around to look for the A13. I heard a gunshot over to the right, so I started turning. So I'm just going to skip ahead because... And here's the Locust. Now, that was a bad shot. I only take out his gunner, I believe. I believe that's the gunner on the Locust anyway. Can't say I'd really care, to be honest. But don't worry, you'll see more of him later when he makes a critical mistake. Now, I should have capped there and got myself another capture, but I was too busy trying to find the Locust that I didn't think about it. I thought these were his tracks, so I started following them. Obviously, in a straight-up gunfight, the P40 will gut a Locust. But the Locust can use its small size to its advantage. Killer Emery in his A13 Mark I can also do the same. But in a straight-up gunfight at reasonable range, the P40 will gut those two like a hot knife through butter. Obviously now the enemies are starting to capture A, so I noticed this and I started making my way back towards the point. This wall collapsed for some strange reason. I was like, there's got to be something here, right? And there's Killer Emery. However, I've got AP loaded. Well, AP can only do so much. Second AP, though, kills the rest of the crew via shrapnel. I'd loaded AP in anticipation to meet the Locust, because the Locust's turret is just enough to set off the fuse. And here comes the Valentine. Now he does get through my armor, but he only takes out 1 crew member, luckily. My suspicion immediately alerted then because of the building collapsing there. I also forgot to mention I'm missing the artillery module. I really wish I'd had it personally, but even so, I dropped smoke, pulled back. That was my last smoke grenade for now. And I do have heat loaded at this point, as far as I remember. Oh, I know it's an AP shell because for some strange reason, this shot bounces, and I have no idea why. Every single time I tested it, it went through. No idea how it didn't penetrate, but it takes out my gunner. So I start to back up. The Valentine gets cocky and starts pushing up. Obviously, you can immediately see there, I'm dabbing the 2 key, World of Tanks E100 player style, and I've already anticipated loading a heat. The Valentine doesn't look at me, it takes far too long for him to stop. Heat ran through the lower glacis, job done. 7 kills in total for the game. Now Killer Emery and the Krauls are now out. And well, there's not many enemy players remaining, but that Locust is still somewhere. As you can see, we're not capping. Me and this Stur were driving around wondering what the heck is going on. Why are we not capping? And originally I thought the Locust was going to a camping spot where you can stealth cap A. So that's why I started to drive to. However, this was not the case. And I'm just going to put it on 4 times because Well, the P40 is not the best in these environments. The engine takes a long time to spool up. Obviously now the enemies are capturing A, but there's a BT-7. And there's the Locust. He shoots the front of the hull, bounces off. And the reason why he bounced off, ladies and gentlemen, is because he hit the driver's port. You never shoot the driver's port. You can see the impact mark there if you was quick enough to pause it. And now we're starting to capture. That was my 9th kill for the game. Technically an ace in this tank. Because obviously the meme car got me 4. And there's my 4th capture of the game. I got a shed load of RP after this match. I actually unlocked the M42 SPAA in this match. Which I'm not doing a first battle on, but I don't particularly like it. It feels a very significant downgrade to the P40. Oh, sorry, the Whirlwind. There's a T28 here, and I have no idea how my teammates did not kill him. The Stur shot him, the AS-42 shot him multiple times. I finished him off with a heat round straight to the driver's face. Job done. Time to kill. And any second now, A is going to start to get recaptured. Again. It seems the enemies just could not leave A alone. And any second now, the Stur driver, who clearly doesn't know how to drive, he probably is a BMW driver in real life. You can hear his engine in a moment. And I thought, well, he's got plenty of room to pass, but no, he has to ram me. There's plenty of room for him to maneuver. And the typical idiots just rammed straight through me. What if there was an enemy tank coming down the road? As you can imagine, I was a bit annoyed. And now there's a T-26 coming down the road. I have no idea where you'd bring a T-26 into this battle. But whatever floats your boat, my friend. You can see him just there in his winter camouflage because it's the first government battalion vehicle. It's the premium that you can unlock if you play Russian tanks for the first time. And here we go. He stopped to try and fire, but even if he could fire, the chances are the shell would have bounced. So now A is obviously being capped. That's my 11th kill for the game. I dropped one of my smoke grenades just to cover my ass, because the last thing I want is to get bum rushed and get shot in the ass multiple times. It's not very pleasant. So now obviously we're starting to move back to the A point. I'm going to skip ahead because it took me a while to find this guy. And as it turns out, people, it's actually a Matilda, who wants to be a drive-thru employee, it seems. Don't do that, mate, just work at McDonald's. And there he is. Clearly wants to be some sort of drive-thru employee, but don't worry, people. As I quoted myself in saying during this match when I was actually playing it, this guy got an order of heat with a side order of death. So obviously the Matilda spotted me going past. I thought if I push up around here, I can surely outflank him. I checked the corner just to make sure. Obviously the Matilda spotted me at this point, started rotating this turret. I thought, no, it's too risky. But the Stur driver now decides to go and bum rush the Matilda. He ricochets off the Matilda. I reckon he was throwing armor piercing and not heat. And here comes the heat, order of heat with a side order of death. First shot, driver, gunner, and cannon breach. And then the last shot takes out the remaining crew members. Job done. 12th kill for the game. That's 4 kills in the meme car with 2 captures. And 3 captures and 8 kills in the P40. And that's pretty much the end of the battle. The only real damage I do after this is to a, well, funny enough, to Pichulata in his Crusader Mark II, but he survives the heat shell. And that's pretty much the end of it, people. So what do I think of P40? Well, I was expecting this thing just to be pretty average in most aspects, but actually I ended up loving this thing. The only thing to take into consideration is up tiers. You will fight the dreaded KV-1's ZIS-5, and even the KV-1E, and Dark Angel will probably leave a comment about that tank. But the tank does struggle when dealing with those. Otherwise, the heat shell is more than adequate to deal with most of the threats that it will see. The AP is very useful for taking out lighter targets, and the machine guns, whilst they only have 5 rounds of clip, as we all know, they're useful. They can take out light vehicles as well, and it can help if you need to mark a target or something, things like that. And obviously the armor itself is very strong. Just take into consideration your reverse speed is crap. It's only -2, but at least it's faster than a Cromwell. Anyway, I hope that gives a very good review on the P40, and I hope you will get this tank yourself. It is to be feared. It is a very good tank. And Dark Angel was a handy backup in Buster, his F2. And having these two tanks working side by side, they're pretty effective together. Because the P40 can take the hits, the F2 can dish out the punishment. Anyway, that's it for today, and I'll catch you on the next one.